New audio has just been released, reportedly of the sister of Iryna Zarutska's murder and the murderer himself, who tries blaming the material used in my body, saying it made him do it. And the sister says, so she just got stabbed. It's like, yeah, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. Now, I'm seeing some people say he's going for an insanity defense. There isn't really such a thing as an insanity defense. I know it differs between jurisdiction, but you plead insanity here, you get life in prison, and maybe that is the play. He wants to avoid the death penalty. Now, there's some reporting, I have not been able to verify, that the DOJ is now pursuing hate crime charges after he was caught on camera saying, I got that white girl. It is kind of hard to hear, but it appears that's what he said. And it's a miserable and brutal story. The full video has been released showing this brutal murder. And there are questions about why people did not help. And there are some brutal stories that I've read from people who say it's particularly common. Now a debate, a conversation about interracial violence is exploding across the internet. And boy, oh boy, is the corporate press angry that anyone would dare bring up crime stats from the FBI and the DOJ and the Bureau of Justice Statistics National Crime Victimization Survey. Matt Walsh had a viral clip from it the other day. I brought up the 2022 numbers. And according to census data confirmed by ChatGPT and Grok, I know they're just AIs, but we pulled the data from NCVS. A young black male is 26 times more likely. In fact, actually, it may be more than this, maybe 52. But black on white crime, there is a 26 times higher chance that a black person will murder a white person than a white person will murder a black person. Now, I think it'd be bad if we as a country judged people based on the color of their skin. Of course, we judge people as individuals. The problem is, and the reason this is being brought up, is because for 10 plus years longer, the media would lie, call you a racist. Big tech companies would ban you if you dared mention this, while telling you at the same time it was white supremacy. That was the problem. I think racism in general is bad and a problem. And I think it's important to point out that there are black people who are racist and commit murders. And that is not to state that all black people anywhere or anything like that. That is not to say when I say there are white supremacists who kill people that all white people anywhere, or Asians for that matter. But when the media came out following the George Floyd incident and told us without a shred of evidence that it was white supremacy and racist cops, every article everywhere, that's the narrative. And you still hear this from random normies, celebrities, and people who don't pay attention. Turns out the narrative actually is the other way around. It seems that there are black supremacists and black racists who have been killing white people to large numbers. And that is not to disparage an entire race. It's to point out racism does exist. But they lied to us about it the whole time. Here's the audio. I'm going to play it for you right now, about a minute long. Listen to this.
So you said something in your body did what?
Nah, the material, put it like this, the material used in my body to stab the lady.
And so she just got stabbed.
Yeah. You know that's not me. I'm talking about just for no reason. But since they did that, now they got to investigate the material my body exposed to. Since they want to do all that, now they got to investigate.
It's funny because she's from the Ukraine. She's from Russia, and you know
She's
they
not
got a
from
war.
Russia.
They had a war going on against the United States. So I'm just trying to understand, out of all people, why her?
That's hey, it ain't. I don't have nothing. They just lashed out on her. That's what happened.
They
lashed out on her. Whoever was working the material, whoever was working the material, they lashed out on her.
It's absolutely psychotic. Here's the New York Times. A gruesome murder in North Carolina ignites a firestorm on the right. It's just, I'm sick of it. You're all sick of it. And this is why this story is getting so much traction. And it's why people are demanding change. And the media can keep playing this stupid game. The corporate press can keep playing this stupid game. And I don't care. We've crushed them. We've routed them. And we are telling them right now, you do not get to lie to us anymore. Okay? I think it's fair to say that when you even have Nick Fuentes, of all people, accused of everything in the book, saying that he's not saying every individual black person is bad or anything like that. He's just pointing out high crime areas, et cetera, et cetera. These clips are going viral. When even Nick Fuentes is saying, I'm not gonna judge some random individual guy for being black. We don't do that. This is the point of being what you would call race neutral. We don't, as a nation, have different laws based on race. We get rid of that. We say, no, we're not playing the game. Black, white, Asian, Latino, whatever it may be, okay, we're going to treat you the same way under the law. That being said, when you are told by the media and by liberals and leftists for decades that there's a white supremacy problem, and they breed this ideological cohort that votes based on this psychotic idea that white people are going around massacring innocent black people, you are going to create the racial tension, animosity that you claim already exists. Now, what are we seeing? I think it's fair to say once again that even if Nick Fuentes is saying something to this degree, and I'm not trying to impugn the honor or integrity of Fuentes. I am not trying to disparage him or accuse him of believing certain things. I'm saying the media has accused him of so much. So even he's saying, like, I'm not blaming an individual black guy, right? Conservatives, people on the right, the anti-woke, the anti-DEI, this crowd is outright saying, we are not here to judge individuals on the basis of race. But y'all have lied to us for so long. Enough. How do we actually deal with this problem? And so long as the media covers it up and lies about it, you are going to make people angry, distrustful, and yes, racist. Because you know what ends up happening? Without a real conversation as to what causes this and why these numbers exist, regular people are just going to outright say black. They're not going to say poverty. They're not going to say culture. They're not going to say gangs. They're not going to say, disrespect. They're literally going to be like black. That's the point. When you don't have a conversation about what causes things like this, why there are so many races, I'll put it like this. I'm going to put it like this. It is stupid to argue, in my opinion, principally, that there is a genetic issue with one race of people. I think that's stupid. And I made the argument the other day. You're walking down the street and there's a black man wearing a suit, carrying a briefcase. And on the right side, there's a guy who's scratching and shaking and looking around all crazy with a scraggly beard. You know which side of the road you want to walk on. It's not an issue of race. It's an issue of, do you feel safe around these individuals? The point I'm saying is that when people are lied to by the media over and over again, but then they keep hearing from friends, from family, they were robbed and the person was black. And I'm not saying every single time, calm down, far left. I'm saying when they hear enough of these stories, they say it must be race. Now, if we had a real conversation about it, we could talk about gang culture. We could talk about the culture in general in these areas where largely black young men are either in gangs or are being raised in a criminal culture, being told to go hard, and you get crime against white people. Or more importantly, when you have DEI efforts for 10 years telling these young black men that white people are evil, when you have people like Farrakhan, when you have people like Jesse Jackson, when you have a culture built around telling the black community that white people are evil, don't be surprised when you have a disproportionate amount of black on white violence. So my argument is, I don't care. Black, white, left, right, up, down, gay, straight, male, female, Islam, Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, Confucius, Taoist, whatever. I'm walking down the street. I make my determinations. Live your life. You shouldn't be held to a different standard under the law based on these characteristics. However, when they come out and they claim it's opposite day, that white people are going around just mass murder, it's just insane. No, don't get me wrong. In 2022, 96,000 white on black instances of violence. It's bad. Not a good thing. The hard thing to understand, I should say the important thing to understand, and what's difficult with this is that we don't actually know if it was white or Hispanic. They say white Hispanic and non-white Hispanic, they lump it all together. And so they just pick and choose how to drive these stats. But I'll put it like this. I don't care. Either way, that's a bad thing. But you had 540,000 black on white. That's 462% higher. That's bad. That's bad. Interracial violence shouldn't happen. Now, I know all the libs come out and they say, yes, but white on white and black on black are higher than both by the millions. Right. Yeah, sure. My point is, violence is all bad. Nobody should be killing each other. White people kill white people more than anyone else, and black people kill black people more than anybody else. It's typically intraracial. That's bad too. We want it all to stop. But my point is, they push this lie, this narrative about white supremacy that is just not true. White people tend to be, and this is a fact, not racist. And that is why forever, it's like 7 or 8 years, we've had the data showing white liberals have an out-group preference, the only demographic. Black Americans slightly favor being around black people. Asian Americans slightly favor being around Asian. That's probably true for people in Asian countries too, and African nations. Latinos. White conservatives slightly favor being around white conservatives. Only slightly. Only slightly. White liberals disfavor being around white people. That is what they've created. Now, this dude's getting federal charges, but the charge is committing an act of violence against someone on mass transport. It is charged with causing death on a mass transport system. So this is a law that came into effect after 9/11, and the argument is it exists at the federal level because this guy is making people terrified to use the train, to use mass transit that is federally funded and protected. Now, we do have this report from Mario Nawfal. DOJ files hate crime charges in Charlotte stabbing. They say this happens just hours after CCTV footage of the attack was released, where he says, "I got that white girl." Brown already faces first-degree murder and federal mass transit homicide charges. These new accounts raise the stakes even higher. I cannot confirm this. It says AP News and official RN Intel. Now, what I will say is one of the most annoying mornings ever, in that there's a ton of big breaking news, and it seems like all journalists are off for the day. And you know what? Well, whatever. It's not always a bad thing, right? So I typically like to get confirmation on these reports before putting it out. Mario Nawfal tends to do a pretty good job, so I'm not trying to argue that he is incorrect. But I've not been able to verify through any channels that there are hate crime charges on this guy. I've seen nothing from the AP. Nothing is popping up on the AP's website confirming any of this. So take it all with a grain of salt. We will see. I will just stress this as it pertains to this audio. I've seen some people argue he's going for an insanity defense. Now, I can't speak for the entirety of the country, but I can tell you at least in the United States, in Illinois, insanity is a defense where you argue you don't know the difference between right and wrong. That is typically what an insanity defense is. You can't argue that the material took over your body, so you committed a murder, because that's just not how insanity defense is. At least, again, in Illinois, I don't know, maybe different in other places. If you don't know the difference between right and wrong, then you lack the, I'm not a lawyer, but what was it, the mens rea? The state of mind by which you knew you were committing a crime. Now, a lot of people don't know this. You don't get off. They don't go, well, he's insane. Let him go. Some people seem to think that you will be sent to a medical facility for a few months to get treated, and then you're free to go. No, this is a life sentence. If you are found guilty by reason of insanity, they just lock you up forever. There's no getting out. However, if he's trying to avoid the death penalty, which Trump has called for, well, then maybe that's the play he's trying to make. He killed her because he's a racist, and we have a serious black supremacist, black nationalist, and black racist problem in this country. And he doesn't want to get the death penalty. So he's now trying to claim that his body was taken over. It's laughably absurd. I want to see, I'm glad this conversation is happening. And it's fascinating how the media is still trying to play this "you're all racists" game. Shut up. Shut your mouths. We don't care anymore. We get it. We know. I'm going to tell you this. Where I grew up in Chicago, yeah, most of the time we got mugged or there was crime, it was young black men from the LeClaire courts. I don't think all black people are bad. I'm saying these gang members grew up in an area controlled by gangs, and it was a black neighborhood. Why can't we talk about that? Why did they ban us? Why did they tell us you can't say that? BS. But they're scared. They're scared. They're scared that if you tell people that, they'll become racist. You know what the issue is? When you cover it up, you make people racist. And Democrats, I think, do it on purpose. They want people fighting each other. They want to keep lying to the black community about helping them when they're not, and they're making it worse, so that they can secure power, make money, and keep you all under their boot. They are scumbags. I want to see justice. Trump has chimed in. We'll see what happens. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all in the next segment.